China is the most populated country in the world, with more than 1,300 millions of people. The overpopulation was so high that the government implemented rules to manage the expansion of the population. In 1970, the government of China just allowed families to have one kid, but in 2016, the policy changed because that policy was bad looked by the population as an inadequate for cultural factors, and now you can have two kids maximum. This is because in China, their culture and their way of thinking are that if you have a girl, what will happen is she will get married and it's going to be part of the husband family. With these policies, the burning of 400 million of people have been prevented, according to the Chinese government. The problem with these reforms is that because of the rule of having just one kid, many women had aborted their babies because they cannot have another one, or they prefer to have a male baby. A consequence of this is the quantity of men in China. There are more men than women. The 48.45% of the population in China are females, and the other 55.55% are males. The preference from the parents to have a boy is really basic. The male kid will be in charge of maintaining their parents in the future. The natality rate has decreased. In 1960, it was 6 children per woman, and in 2001 it was at 1.7. But in the International Poverty Conference by the UN, this subject was analyzed and the problem relayed in the FPNU. This organization was in charge of helping three areas: the reproductive health areas, the gender equality, and the population development. Some effects of the increasing of the population in China are the lack of resources. With more people, there is more demand of products. The chance of having diseases increases because of the bad hygiene. For a person to find a job, it's harder because there is more demand. The city has been also affected in the transportation part. The city is full of cars, and the public transportation, such as trains, metro, and buses, are always crowded. People doesn't care how many space there is in the vehicle. They don't care about their comfortability. They just get in whatever way is possible. At the metro, there are employees that their job is basically push people inside wagons for the metro to be able to close. A big problem in China is the drug addiction and alcoholism, because the people that struggle in life tend to fall in these addictions, which generates a lot of death and violence in the street and houses. When the population increases, the demand of water also increases. Lack of water is a major issue in China. Along with the citizens of China, farmers and factories also need water. They need water to produce crops and to manufacture to the population. But even with this, a lot of persons in China live in horrible conditions. They build houses in every corner that is able. Most of the buildings are apartments, and most of them have lack of water and electricity. The overpopulation also affects in the environment. According to a study made in China, what 20 years of environmental problems there is equals to 1 century of environmental problems in other country. People often wear masks to protect themselves of the gases they are inhaling. More than 50 cities are in red alert. According to the World Health Organization, each year 1.3 million people die because of the contamination. The common diseases are lung cancer and the low weight of the newborn babies. The most contaminated city in the world is Peking, China.
Population increase in China started about 25 years ago and has increased rapidly since. China's population started to increase dramatically after World War II and has not stopped. It started in 1945 with Mao Zedong, who declared the founding of the People's Republic in China. He encouraged the Chinese to have as many children as they could to help bring more money to the country. He wanted this growth in people to produce more food and build a stronger army. His overall belief was that the more people, the stronger we are. Under his will, the Chinese population grew to an enormous amount.
The Chinese government had used several methods to control population growth. In 1979, China started the one-child per family policy. This policy stated that citizens must obtain a birth certificate before the birth of their children. The citizens will be offered special benefits if they agree to have only one child. Citizens who did have more than one child will either be taxed an amount up to 50% of their income or punished by loss of employment or other benefits. Furthermore, unplanned pregnancies or pregnancies without the proper authorization will need to be terminated. In 1980, the birth quota system was established to monitor population growth. Under this system, the government set target goals for each region. Local officials were mainly held responsible for making sure the population growth totals did not exceed target goals. If target goals were not met, the local officers were punished by law or by loss of privilege.
China conflict. China real conflict is an economical conflict. China's economy has enjoyed 30 years of double-digit growth, making it the world's largest. Its success was based on the command economy that drove growth through government spending. China's economy is measured by its gross domestic product, but created a class of ultra-rich professionals who want more of individual liberties that they primarily live in the urban areas. Since they were most of the jobs, local governments are charged with providing social services, but aren't allowed to tax locally to fund them. As a result, families are forced to save because China doesn't provide benefits for people who move from the farms to the cities to work. Interest rate has been low, and many investors think that China is rich. But outside of a handful of its coast sporting cities and Beijing, it is still poor and getting old. Regions lead to degradation of land and resources, pollution, and the determination of living resources and conditions.
I personally think that it is impossible to completely stop with the overpopulation because the government can prevent people from having more children, but it can educate them to have safe sex and not have unexpected babies. Also, I think that at one point China will be so overpopulated the government won't be able to handle the economy, and people will start migrating because of the lack of job opportunities and so.
China's restrictions on child abuse are forcing the people to choose whether or not they would like their firstborn to be a male or a female. The Chinese believe that it is better to have a male child, given that in the future a boy will bring more money to the family, not to mention the continuation of the family name.
In my opinion, the overpopulation of China will grow economy, but eventually the natural resources of China will finish soon, so their economy will fall. I recommend to China is that reforms are needed to ensure China's population will not continue to grow. Better policies, more education, and urbanization could help China to reach population target goals, and regulate the number of children allowed to a couple to have limits that the policy they have.
I think overpopulation will continue growing, and there isn't a big solution that can help us lower the number of humans in the world. But this can help us to have a better world and continue updating our medicine, education, and percentage of life. In some years, our world will have more billions of humans, and this will produce a lot of pros and cons.